Welcome back to Hardball. A group of retired generals and admirals are rallying behind President Obama's push to close the terrorist detention facility at Guantanamo Bay. And they say that Dick Cheney, the former vice president, and his daughter Liz Cheney are using fear in this fight. Here's Cheney last May speaking to the neoconservative American Enterprise Institute. Let's listen.
The administration has found that it's easy to receive applause in Europe for closing Guantanamo. But it's tricky to come up with an alternative that will serve the interest of justice and America's national security. Keep in mind that these are hardened terrorists picked up overseas since 9/11. The ones that were considered low risk were released a long time ago. And among these, it turns out that many were treated too leniently because they cut a straight path back to their prior line of work and have conducted murderous attacks in the Middle East. An estimated 14% of those released previously are believed to be back in the business of jihad. I think the president will find upon reflection that to bring the worst of the worst terrorists inside the United States would be cause for great danger and regret in the years to come.
Well, one of Cheney's biggest allies in this debate is none other than his daughter Liz. Here she is debating Salon's Joan Walsh on CNN last June. Let's listen.
It may be the case that it's easy to sit in Manhattan or wherever you're sitting, Joan, and say, gosh, these people don't really want to harm us and we really shouldn't detain them. But, you know, we're at war. And the laws of war very clearly state that while you're at war, you can detain enemy combatants to prevent them from returning to the battlefield. 75% of the American people do not think that our government should be bringing terrorists to the homeland, and they're right.
Well, with us now, two of those experienced military voices urging President Obama to close Guantanamo. Retired Army Lieutenant General Harry Soister is former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and retired Navy Rear Admiral John Hudson is a former Judge Advocate General. General, I want you first to talk about this. The difference between putting the troops, or rather putting the bad guys, the terrorists, alleged some cases, clearly guilty in other cases, in Guantanamo out there in Cuba, or putting them in some maximum security prison in the United States. What's the difference?
Well, we have them in Guantanamo, of course, today, and Guantanamo is a symbol of everything we've done in the past in terms of our abuse of prisoners, etc., and remains a symbol which we need to remove. We need to remove that symbol as soon as possible because, in fact, the quicker we do that, the more secure this country will be.
Because? Why does the symbol hurt us in terms of our security? How's it work?
It's an excellent recruiting poster and has been used, in fact, in the name Guantanamo by Osama bin Laden himself, and it's used as a great recruiting tool for our enemies. And it also has driven a wedge between our allies in with the same view that it should be closed, and they don't like the symbol either.
Admiral Hudson, the Cheneys, or rather the Cheney and the Cheney, they pronounce their names differently, have been out there scaring the country, making the point that if you bring these terrorists into the United States proper, into our territory, and put them in a maximum security prison, that they will threaten the folk. What do you think of that charge?
Well, I think it's just foolishness, Chris. You know, we're here, this group of admirals and generals, in order to try to debunk the politics and the strategy of fear and to rely on a strategy of strength. We can bring these people to the United States, put them in prison in the United States, prisons from which nobody has ever in the history of America escaped, and we will be perfectly safe. This is one thing that Vice President Cheney is right about. This is a national security issue. What he's wrong about is the direction in which the national security interest cuts. The national security interest cuts in favor of closing Guantanamo, as General Soister says, taking that iconic image off the table and putting these people in prison, prosecuting those people that we can prosecute, transferring the others, but get rid of Gitmo.
What do you think, General, is the strategy or the intent of people like Cheney who are constantly trying to get people's teeth rattling, constantly trying to get people nervous? Of course, we have to be secure in a country, but to have us always nervous, always worried, even about some terrorists getting out of San Quentin or something. What is their strategy politically?
Well, I think that is the strategy, to show that we have reason to be fearful because of the fact that as they worked the last 8 years, they continued to put this country and those who believe in this country that we have a lot to fear. And in fact, we have great faith in the strength of our country and don't think that we need to be fearful, but in fact to capitalize on our strength, whether it's that of our courts, our armed forces, or whatever, and maintain our highest ideals. And we do that by doing the things that we advocate, and certainly not by putting the country in a state of apprehension, fear about what may happen, in this case of not releasing, but to putting prisoners properly tried into our prisons inside the United States.
Admiral, why do you think a general, in this case McChrystal's report to the president, was leaked to Bob Woodward of the Post? What would be the strategy behind leaking a memo like that? And do you think the civilian leadership of our country should be basically taking orders from its military commanders? I just wonder, I sense a little General MacArthur action going on here. I wonder why we're reading McChrystal's report to the president before it's officially released. How do we know this stuff?
Well, I'm guessing that President Obama's Commander-in-Chief and General McChrystal, in his capacity, each have a pretty good understanding of what their respective roles are, and President Obama's role as the Commander-in-Chief. General McChrystal give him advice. President Obama will tell him what to do, and General McChrystal will execute that. So I'm not sure that why it was leaked, who leaked it. I have no idea. It was unfortunate, but it really it doesn't change the relationship of the Commander-in-Chief and a subordinate general.
Well, the Huffington Post today reported that a columnist for Newsmax, that's a conservative media outfit, he's a fellow named John Perry, wrote a column Tuesday, which later was pulled, which in part said the following: imagine a bloodless coup to restore and defend the Constitution through an interim administration that would do the serious business of governing and defending the nation. Skilled military-trained nation builders would replace accountability-challenged radical left commissars. Having bonded with his twin teleprompters, the president would be detailed for ceremonial speech-making. Is this just Looney Tune stuff, General? This, we all saw 7 Days in May, and I just wonder whether in this country anybody takes seriously a push for the military to grab power.
Having spent a long time in the military, I don't remember any discussions about a coup. In fact, I think it's a great strength of this country that our military completely understands the role of our civilian leadership and their superiority. We have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's worked pretty well for a long time. We think it's going to continue to work for us very well.
Well said. Who couldn't agree with that? If anybody watching disagrees with that, please leave this country. This is a democracy. The military serve the interests of the country. They do not dictate. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Harry Soyster and Rear Admiral John Hudson.